about this poll?
Okay.
Poll.
Oh.
Oh, I can't find a word for it.
Welcome to Lifestyle SG Property. Today is Tuesday, 22nd of August 2023. Today is the nomination day for the presidential election, but it is not the topic that we want to be talking about today. We want to be talking about what the PM Lee had actually mentioned in the National Day rally in regards to the changes in the HDB market. Now, mainly there are three classifications: standard, plus, and prime. Okay, now let's talk about it. Now, I'll run through the table a little bit. It's right in front of me on the screen. For standard, it applies to all locations, majority of the supply, standard subsidies, and standard restriction, 5-year minimum occupation period. Then for plus, we have choice of location near transport nodes, town center. There are more subsidies, and in terms of restriction, 10-year minimum occupation period, there is subsidy recovery upon resale and also some BTO eligibility conditions on resale, including income ceiling. For prime, it is the choicest and most central location, mainly in the city center surrounding towns, greater southern waterfront. It has got the most subsidies, tightest restrictions, 10-year minimum occupation period, no whole flat rental. But actually, we now realize that it is also happening in plus. It also has the restriction on the 10-year minimum occupation period with no whole flat rental. And then there is also subsidy recovery upon resale, and then full BTO eligibility conditions on resale, including income ceiling. Now, today we will be having this discussion. Note that this is 2 days after we have received this information, so many information are still fresh. So now, anyone want to start? When you first received this information, what kind of ideas that come to you? What are the main changes that will affect the property market?
Oh, I think I'll start. So I think when this first came in, what I felt was instantly that those that are currently in the market right now, the current HDB properties that are near MRT station, that are resale right now, that are new, these will become highly sought after. They become very high in demand, because going forward, especially from next year, second half onwards, almost everything that is near, that's convenient, near town center, near MRT, will then now be classified under plus with a 10-year MOE period. Which of course means that the subsequent buyer that buys from the seller will also have to fulfill the 10-year MOP period. And that will set itself apart from the existing pool that we have today that buyers can buy into. I think that's the first thing that jumps out at me.
Then would the prices increase? Those that near MRT now? This is a better deal, right? Now you don't need to fulfill so many criteria to buy something near the MRT.
Oh yeah, I would think so. In fact, I have had several buyers reach out to me about this, and they are a little bit upset because they've been thinking of buying, and now these measures just kicked in. So even before it's in place, which is supposed to be next year second half, 2024, the second half of the year, I'm pretty sure right now, because of this new information, prices will start to shift upwards, because there'll be even more demand right now. People are focusing more on places like this, to jump in before all these things starts kicking in. And then you'll see even a more pronounced change.
Actually, I want to bring up also for single buyers, it's a good news for them, because now they can buy all the flats across Singapore. Previously, they were only able to buy BTO for non-mature estates.
Yeah, that's true. So now they actually can buy the prime one, the BTO flats that's under prime, right?
Yes, correct.
Yeah,
correct.
subject to 7,000 income ceiling.
Yes, and also right now 14,000.
14,000 for the plus. And
correct.
also the standard ones.
Correct.
Okay.
Correct. And then the thing is, in this case, it means that the buyers, these buyers, single buyers, they can not just look at resale, but they can also look at BTO as another option right now.
So while the policy means that the pre-existing resale flats in the open market, there will be probably more demand for people going into it because of lesser restriction. But some of the demand in these properties may also be lesser, because it means that more people can now go and buy the new ones that's coming out next year, right?
Correct.
Yeah.
Okay, for our singles, actually is a good time, because in Singapore right now, there are more singles, and this opportunity actually will allow the singles to have more choices to buy
that's right.
houses across the whole of Singapore. And then currently also, first timer or those above 35 years old, they can only apply 2 flexi flat in non-mature estate, as what we mentioned earlier on. And then also because they are also not allowed to buy prime housing location. But right now, as in for the new for the new implementation next year, they are able to buy PHL flats, which will become prime housing. And also, yes, correct, two-room flexi. And then also, they can apply for BTOs across all three categories, like what they said earlier on.
Yeah, so I'm pretty sure that will have a slightly opposite effect, as I was saying about the demand being higher for resale flats. Yeah, that will definitely be a counter effect. Yeah, because the singles can now, instead of only being able to buy resale, larger flats, they can now buy larger flats direct.
Right. So I think very interesting, because sometimes when government come up with such measures, we don't really know in the mid or the longer term how actually it will transform, Okay, so like for example, there was a time where the government says that when you have a private property and you buy a HDB, then you have to let go of your private property. So actually during that period of time, you realize that the supply of the HDB suddenly was very, very few, because a lot of people realize that, if I already have a HDB, then I should continue to hold on to my HDB, because if I move to the private sector, then I have got no choice no way to come back and buy a HDB unless I'm willing to clear off all my residential units, and that is locally and also abroad. So in this aspect, right, we still don't know whether ultimately how the effect will translate in the future, right? Yeah. And the very interesting part is that there are so many classification. We have non-mature, mature, then we actually have the prime location public housing model, and none of these prime location public housing has already been fully constructed. Nobody has lived into this property yet, and suddenly then there is this another classification of standard plus and prime. So it's actually rather confusing, like how so it's gonna take some time even for realtors to get a sense of it and know fully. That means to say, in time to come, when these properties actually met is MOP, or even when they have obtained keys, then there is also a distinction between which property is under the previous prime location public housing model and which one is built after 2024.
Oh dear, I didn't think of that.
That means you're basically a lot more checks to go into before you even advise a client to enter. There's so much more
In
consideration.
fact, now that we are mentioning, I think what the realtors or even buyers have to check would be when they actually applied for it. So anything after 2024 second half, then is under these three category. Anything before, and if it is in the prime housing location, then it's under the before. That means to say, if I'm a single and I start sourcing for a flat, I cannot happily merrily think that, oh, this one is in prime estate depth, and if it's a 2-room flexi, I can safely buy into it. If it fall before that one, then I cannot buy.
Anything before second half of 2024, essentially. Anything that is PLH right now, today.
Right. Yeah.
Especially in mature, referring to mature estate, yes.
Mature estate.
Meaning previously they can't buy mature estate, now they can.
Yes.
Then not just opens them up to this entirely new area, like let's say Tampines or Ang Mo Kio. Like for example, recently we had that new launch, right, in Ang Mo Kio Central. They would not have been able to buy. But if this were to have been launched second half of next year, the singles can then now buy a 2-room flexi direct in this portion, because now they can buy in mature estates. And they will have $14,000. Correct.
So to go in a bit further regarding this, it means that if we were talking about those that will be built, that will be launched actually after 2024, the second half. The singles, if they want to buy into these properties, they can, but they can only buy a 2-room. And in terms of the income ceiling, they are subjected to 7,000. But if they were to buy a plus or standard ones, then they can buy, but the restriction is a bit broader, so long they are under 14,000. And honestly, if I'm a single, I'm making between 10 to 14,000. It's quite decent, right? So these singles, actually in the past, they would not be able to buy anything direct from HDB. But now they can. So that is a good thing that actually opens up to many of them.
Like a plus.
Yeah, correct.
Yeah. So previously, they cannot, right? Now mature. So now this has opened up entirely for them.
So
Good news for them, actually.
Basically, standard and plus they can buy in any area, right?
Yeah,
Now.
Yes.
correct.
Yeah, and only like for the prime flats is 2-room
Correct.
resale
Right.
and BTO.
Right.
Okay.
You're talking about not the prime greater southern waterfront. You're talking about like the city. Yeah, correct. Yeah. Pertaining to all these changes, how it would actually affect the private market. Yeah, so What is your view? So how do you tell our clients, Celestine?
I think going forward is very hard. Not very hard, like harder to make very huge profit margins from prime and plus flats. So inevitably it will boil over to the private market because a lot of people rely on the profits from their HDB to move on to like a more expensive private house.
Right. Essentially an upgrade. They will have
Yeah,
lesser.
upgrade,
They will have
yeah.
lesser cash from the sale of their HDB to pour into the private market.
Yeah.
And honestly, if you think about people are getting married later, people settling down later, then you talk about even we take say if you're an age 35, you think that okay, we can settle down with my girlfriend or your boyfriend, then you start applying, and at the age 35, assuming the point that you decided, and that year you also get a unit in either plus or prime. Then you wait for 4 years, 5 years construction period, then you wait for another 10 years, 50 years old already.
But that is if you're lucky, you get it on the first round.
Correct. So if
take years.
so if you take years, then you are 37, 38, then it get pushed up. So
Yeah.
by the age of 50 plus, and you start to think about you want to sell your house, and also when you sell your house, can you sell to anybody?
No, there's got follow all the restrictions just now that we say.
The income ceiling, the 14,000 and whatnot, right? Then ultimately that will also sort of restrict the kind of price that people are willing to or able to pay. Then after that, you think about you want to jump onto a private property, then that means your lending years would be less than 15 years or at max 15 years.
Yes.
Because the loan is maximum 65 years. And if you only move at 50, then only 15 years. Well, the installments is going to be very high.
That would also means that because HDB actually generally form the main fabric of our property market, so it will somehow also affect the private sector. It will also probably slow down the price increment of the private sector. Yeah. But having said that, I think that the gap between the private housing and also HDB will continue to widen. Yeah, because the affluents are still going to be buying the private properties, right?
absolutely.
Yeah, it's just that it will probably not what we have seen over the last 2 or 3 years. And it's interesting to actually see how it evolves over time. Right.
Personally, I feel that the singles may also look into the private markets as well, because if those who are earning, example, 10K and above, they can actually have another option, which is the private market, although they can buy more places in the HDB areas. If they are looking at in the long term of the return of ROI, we call it ROI, they may find the private market more attractive because with the private market itself, you will not have this consideration whereby you need to actually part your proceeds back to HDB. As for private market, there isn't a restriction on this right now. So I believe buyers, for single buyers itself, they will relook into their options and also look into the private market instead of the HDB market.
So what we might be seeing might be that maybe at that price point, at the income level, one bedder apartments may start being a bit more in demand again. Because right now, over the past couple of years, because of COVID, one bedder has seen a huge drop in the amount of demand in the market. So maybe through this measure, if, like you said, the buyers are thinking, maybe buying HDB doesn't make sense anymore in terms of ROI. If I at $10,000 income, I want to jump into the private market. What they are likely able to buy will be your studios and your one bedder as a start, and therefore, this might have unintended effect of pushing up the prices of the one bedder. Okay, so actually I also have another thing I want to bring up is that apart from all this that we have spoke about, I think there will be a clearer segregation between HDB flats in future. It will be confusing because instead of just looking at the existing market and what it brings, now you have to think about, are they PLH, are they existing resale? And so if, let's say for example, now I have a MOP unit, or not even just MOP, anything that's been built now prior to all these new measures in place, all these flats that are not covered would then see a spike in demand. So when you're looking at the resale market in general, you're going to see a segregation. Flats that are not under this model will be priced higher. And this is already on top of what we believe we'll see, in the much older flats, 30, 40 years old, especially when our parents, if they leave us their flats after they go. And of course, we can touch on this in another video. But you will basically see that in the HDB market, there will be a lot of segregations. And it will take buyers a lot of effort and time to actually really understand what each of these would mean and what this translates for them 5-10 years down the road. Because now you think about, am I just doing 5 year MOP? What are my plans after the 5 years or after the 10 years? I think that is something that would see buyers who have to rely on agents to actually decipher this information for them. Yeah.
Actually, after listening to all of what you all said, I feel like the government is quite smart. I think they think through it, like the whole process already. They already foresaw what is going to happen. And I felt like they have taken the private market into consideration also, because like as you said, like the one bidder will be more in demand, so it spreads the demand more evenly throughout the market, I think. And also back to the older flats that are in better location, I think is to even out the whole demand.
Yeah, I think ultimately they are the ones that has got the most data. And then PMD also said that there are more people that are not getting married and there are more singles. So while they used to have some restriction, now they are actually pushing out more choices for them. I don't know actually what is at the back of their mind when they actually put in more restriction. Maybe they are thinking that I put in more restriction, I push you to get married. I'm not sure lah. But ultimately they realize that still, no matter what happened, people are still remaining single, right? So I guess that's just one of the thing lah.
Yeah. I would say the government's intention is probably to stop people's mindset that buying a HDB means that after 5 years I'll definitely be able to earn from the flats. And I think the biggest thing would be that previously, if you can buy something in the prime area, you're already, there's already you're starting to see a bit of segregation from people who can afford central locations, having greater appreciations, versus someone who's buying maybe a bit non-central area. So they want to make the areas, not just prime areas only for slightly more affluent people, but also for people who might have been more of a budget, and that's why they come up with more subsidies. But basically in return for having more subsidies, they slap on more restrictions, and they are hoping to have more level base for everyone. That means you don't have to be rich to live in the Greater Southern Waterfront, for example.
That's right. I think that's one very interesting thing that Christopher mentioned, that they're also spreading the demographics in terms of income level. So if you are single, you actually make more. You actually cannot live in the prime area. If you are single, you make below 7,000, actually you get to live in a prime area. So they are actually just spreading this, so they are no longer like giving exclusivity to a certain areas. I think that can only be good for Singaporeans. Ultimately, whether you are living better, you are not living better, we are all actually staying at one place, just like the ethnic quota, right? Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. A more complex form of the ethnic quota, actually.
That's right.
Yeah, so it's pretty brilliant. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's brilliant the way they thought about this whole.
Okay.
Oh, I cannot find a word for it. So actually, what is the effect, the end effect of everything?
I think the main effect actually is to spread the demand across the board, right? Yeah, that's the main thing I feel.
More importantly, I think HDB is just trying to stay true to its mission at keeping things affordable for people, and to send across a clear message to any Singaporeans, any buyers that if they buy a HDB flat, they shouldn't be out there looking to make a profit.
Yeah.
I think that's the clearest message, that they want to control the prices and not let things go out of hand.
That's right.
But the extent of the effects, I think no one can determine at this point. We have to see how things play out.
That's right.
Yeah, that's
when things really come into play.
Right. I think the tone that the government actually has set has changed, because in the days of Lee Kuan Yew, if you have read his books, I shared this with actually many people. Actually, he kept saying that, if you look across the world, how many other countries who has got public housing scheme is able to see their public housing actually jump in this kind of level of appreciation. So that actually also has a meaning to it, meaning to say how fast a country or a city actually has propelled itself over the years. But after that, you see that in the last 10 years or so, the ruling party, the government no longer mention about this actually effect. In fact, what you can see is they wanting to actually sustain the price, and they do not want to see the prices go up too much.
I think that's basically also, to round off, I think that times has changed. I think previously when Singapore was small and young, and then they wanted to instill confidence in something that was very new, that's HDB. They wanted people to believe in ownership. And therefore they are saying, okay, you trust me, you own a flat yourself, and this will be a nest egg because you will appreciate. But in today's time, when people are more afraid about cost of living, about how the future generation can actually afford a home, and also about how equality plays out in where you buy and where you can buy a flat, I think that is now the focus of the government, that you want people to be able to afford it, and the people who can afford it to be equal. And I think that's a change. Like Lawrence has mentioned, they no longer talk about it being an appreciating asset forever. They just want to hold it steady, make sure that it's affordable for people that there's an income level that can afford it, based on whatever's there. Yeah.
Okay, thank you for joining our conversation. I guess we have a very fruitful, understanding of each other's views. And I think that in the coming days, there will be more data, more interpretation, more ideas. And hopefully there will be another episode that we will be able to share with you guys more. Stay tuned, subscribe to the channel. Bye-bye.